We have a saying, beauty is pain. We use it to dismiss the discomfort of a high heel or the sting of hot wax. But for our ancestors, this phrase was not a metaphor, it was a literal, physical reality. History is often written in blood, but we rarely consider how much of that blood was spilled in the dressing room. From the drafty courts of Elizabethan England to the imperial palaces of China, the pursuit of aesthetic perfection has often been a macabre dance with death. We drape ourselves in silk to signal status, but underneath the finery, history's elite were poisoning their blood, crushing their skeletons, and turning their bodies into flammable tinder boxes. I am your channel name, and today we open the wardrobe of history to examine its most dangerous obsessions. In the 16th century, the sun was the enemy of status. A tanned face implied labor. It meant you worked the fields. Therefore, a complexion of stark, ghostly white was the ultimate symbol of wealth. To achieve this, the aristocracy turned to a cosmetic known as Venetian ceruse. It was a mixture of vinegar and white lead. It was opaque, it was smooth, and it covered every blemish with a satin finish. It was also a potent neurotoxin. When applied to the face, the lead didn't just sit on the surface, it was absorbed into the bloodstream. The side effects of prolonged use, a condition known as Saturnism, were horrific. Hair loss, muscle paralysis, and mental deterioration were common, but the cruelty of the trend lay in its cyclical nature. The lead slowly ate away at the epidermis, causing the skin to gray, shrivel, and scar. To hide these new blemishes, women applied thicker layers of the very poison causing the damage. It became a trap. By the end of her life, it is reported that Queen Elizabeth I wore a layer of makeup nearly an inch thick, a mask of youth that was in reality a toxic sarcophagus, slowly poisoning the monarch from the outside in. If the 16th century poisoned you, the 19th century preferred to burn you alive. By the 1850s, the fashionable silhouette had expanded to impossible proportions. Enter the crinoline, a structural cage made of steel hoops and horsehair designed to support skirts that could reach a circumference of 6 yards. It was a marvel of engineering, but it created a dangerous disconnect. The wearer was physically separated from her environment. She could not feel where her dress ended and the world began. In an era illuminated by open fireplaces, gas lamps, and candles, this lack of spatial awareness was fatal. The fabrics, light muslins and silks, were highly flammable. The most tragic example is that of Archduchess Matilda of Austria. In 1867, the 18-year-old was standing at a window in the Palace of Vienna. Trying to hide a lit cigarette from her father, she tucked it behind her back. Her gauzy dress ignited instantly. Encased in the steel cage, she could not strip the garment off. She died from her injuries. She was not alone. In a single decade, it is estimated that over 3,000 women in England lost their lives to crinoline fires. They were prisoners in their own gowns, sacrificed to the god of volume. While the Victorians battled fire, the Georgians wallowed in filth. In the late 18th century, the periwig became the defining accessory for the European elite. These were not modest hairpieces. They were towering architectural feats, sometimes rising 3 feet above the head. But hygiene was optional. To style these wigs, hairdressers used pomatum, a sticky paste made from animal fat, usually bear grease or beef tallow. To keep them white, they were dusted with flour. You were essentially wearing a block of rancid fat and food on your head for weeks at a time. It was an olfactory nightmare, but worse, it was a biological hazard. The wigs became breeding grounds for lice and fleas. The itch was so unbearable that fashionable aristocrats carried long silver or ivory rods, known as scratching sticks, to dig through the hardened shell of grease and reach their scalp without disturbing the arrangement. While stories of mice nesting in wigs may be the exaggerations of satirists, the presence of vermin was a very real concern. At night, intricate cages were placed over the wigs while the wearer slept, specifically to keep the rats away from the feast on their heads. Perhaps no trend demonstrates the agony of beauty quite like the practice of foot binding in imperial China. For nearly 1,000 years, beginning in the Song dynasty, the golden lotus, a foot no longer than 3 inches, was the prerequisite for marriage among the elite. But do not mistake this for a tight shoe. This was systematic, deliberate mutilation. Beginning between the ages of 4 and 6, a girl's toes were curled under the sole of the foot, and with immense force, the arch of the foot was broken. The feet were then bound tightly with cloth to prevent the bones from healing in their natural state. The pain was excruciating. Infection and gangrene were common, and it is estimated that 10% of girls did not survive the process. For those who survived, walking became a precarious balancing act, but that was the point. A woman who could not walk was a woman who did not need to work. Her immobility was a status symbol for her husband, proof that he was wealthy enough to keep a wife who existed solely as a decorative object, rendered physically helpless by the standards of her time. Looking back, it is easy to judge these trends as barbaric. We marvel at the ignorance of the past, but are we so different? We inject botulism toxins into our faces to freeze our muscles. We undergo invasive surgeries to alter our silhouettes. We starve ourselves to fit the mold of the moment. Fashion changes, silhouettes evolve, but the human desire to conform to an impossible ideal remains eternal. History teaches us that vanity is a powerful force, one that all too often demands a sacrifice. I'm your channel name. Thank you for watching.